French Canadian. And so when I was growing up, I had a lot of French in my family. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good question. Who's next? How many languages do I have? That's a good question. Ms. Kanai has been in a number of other classes, so she knows most of what I'm going to tell you. All right? But I speak English and French from my home. My mom is from Germany, so I also learned German. When I was in high school, my French teacher was a very special kind of teacher. I learned a lot from her. You know, there are some teachers who don't care what you do. The teacher will stand here and will talk and will write, and then if you sit in the back and if you play with your phone, if you sleep, the teacher doesn't care, right? My French teacher wasn't like that. My French teacher, I think, is one of the best teachers I ever met, because this is in high school. I had a friend who didn't do his homework. In class, she called his mother. All right? This isn't elementary, this is high school, okay? So my friend, he was 16 or 17, and in the middle of class, the teacher went over to the phone and she called his mother. And she said, "Do you know that your son isn't doing his homework?" That is an awesome teacher. All right? She actually cared about everybody in her class. So, she made me learn Italian. She's taught me French, but she was actually from Italy. And because of her, I got to learn Italian. So in university, I studied French and German and Italian. And then all of the Italian students also studied Spanish. So I did too. So it was German, French, Spanish, Italian, and then Latin and Greek, because they're very useful to know, right? And then I also studied some sign language afterwards. So that's, what, eight languages? Something like that, yeah. And then some Chinese, because we don't let them. Okay, so good question. Who's next? What is my favorite food? That's a popular question in Taiwan. Taiwan culture is all about food. My favorite food is probably chou tofu, but I don't get to eat it very much because, I need to lose weight. But I really like chou tofu. And you know what they have when they take the chicken, the part of the chicken that chews the food, right? You know, chicken don't have teeth, right? Instead, they swallow rocks. And they use those rocks there's a muscle that they use for that. That muscle is really good. I really like the part from it, the guts inside the chicken. I like that better than the actual chicken meat, like the legs or that. I like the guts more. Really good. So that's also my favorite. Okay, next question. Why did I come to Taiwan? That's a good question. It has to do with what I studied. Because I studied many different languages, I couldn't get a job with just language. If you want to be a translator, you have to study one language. You have to focus on just one. And I studied too many languages. So I couldn't really find a job in Canada. But I had a friend who taught English in Korea. Now this friend of mine, he had very bad language skills. His Italian, what we studied, his Italian was very, very poor, and his English was also really bad. I know his English was bad because I helped him with his homework. So he got a job teaching English. And I thought, you know, if that guy can teach English, then I can teach English. So that's why I came to Taiwan. And then I stayed here because Taiwan is just an awesome place. The food is good, the girls are pretty, you know, it's a beautiful country, right? Okay, good. Next question. How long have I been in Taiwan? I've been here now 16 years. Yeah. I came here 16 years ago, yeah. And I've been teaching English all that time. So I know what problems you have in learning English. That's why I do this and this. Because after 16 years, I see where a lot of your problems come from. So that's why I want to help you with those problems. Okay, next. Everybody has to ask a question. You can ask me, or I can start asking you more questions. I can put more questions here. So, ask me some more.
How many countries have you gone?
How many countries have I gone to? How many countries have I visited? Well, when I was studying languages in high school, I got to travel to Europe. So I went on some student exchanges. You know an exchange? An exchange means that you go to another country and somebody from there comes here, right?
Yeah.
So I went to Germany for a few months. I went to France, to Italy. I spent a year in Switzerland. You know Switzerland? Right? Switzerland is the country in between. There's France and Germany and Italy. Switzerland is the middle. It's a beautiful country. They make watches, a lot of watches. They also make a lot of gold. Yeah, a lot of things out of gold. And it's a lot of mountains, right? And I learned something very important in Switzerland. Where I lived, there were mountains on each side, and in the middle, in between the mountains, there was a lake, all right? At the end of the lake was the city where I lived. So, in Canada, where I lived in Canada, was the sunniest place in Canada. I learned this when I went to Germany. I went to Germany and I read a book about Canada, and it said that my city in Canada was the sunniest place in Canada. We have lots of sun. It's beautiful. This city here in Switzerland, well, with the lake and the mountains, in about October, November, the clouds started coming in, you know, winter clouds. And they stayed there. And for 3 months, the city was covered with clouds. For 3 months, I didn't get to see the sun at all. So I learned that the weather can really affect how you feel. And actually, after a while, I stayed in bed pretty much for a whole month. I got up to go to the bathroom and to eat, and I went back to bed. So I learned something very important during that time. So that's where, yeah, I've been to those countries. In Asia, I've only been to Taiwan. I've only been to airports in Japan and Korea, and I think that's it. But going to the airport doesn't really count as visiting the country, right? So, but that's a good question. Okay, next question.
What kind of weather do you like?
What kind of
Weather.
weather?
Because
Okay. And it's a lot colder there, yeah.
It's very cold.
Yeah, I like the weather in Taiwan sometimes. Like today's weather is nice. The summer in Taiwan is too hot. I have a hard time when it's that hot outside. But at least if it's sunny, then it's okay. The problem is when it's really hot and cloudy, and then you sweat, but it doesn't help. You still feel that it's too hot, right? So I like this weather. I really like the cold. I like it when it snows, but I haven't been back to Canada for a long time, so I haven't seen the snow in a long time. Where you live in China, do you have a lot of snow? Does it snow a lot in the winter? Yeah. Do you guys ever play with the snow, like throw snowballs at each other?
Sure.
Yeah, of course. Everybody in a cold country knows that. You can build like a house with snow, and then you can make balls and you throw the snow at each other. It is a lot of fun. In Taiwan, you can't do that. Unless you use rice. You could make a ball of rice and throw that at somebody. That could be fun. But, okay, next question. Okay. Where have I lived in Taiwan? Well, I lived before in Zhongli, but now we live in Miaoli. Do you know in Zhunan, you know how the train splits to the ocean and the mountain? Okay. The first stop on the ocean line is Tanwen. Tanwen, it's a really small town. We have a train station and a police station and an elementary school, and that's it. There's nothing else. So that's where we live now. It's really, really nice because the school is so small. The elementary school has like 50 students. Not 50 in each class. That's Taipei, right? And then you have like 20 classes. No. In this school, each class has maybe 7 or 8 students, 6 or 7 students. It's really, really nice to work there. So yeah, that's where. I haven't really lived anywhere else in Taiwan. We've just visited. Okay, good. More questions? Everybody has to ask a question. You can ask 2 questions if you like. Okay. That's a good question. Every language has certain problems, certain special aspects. Like in English, if we look at how English works, one of the biggest problems is that we can make our words, right? Like we have study and student. But this is typical for any language that uses letters. We also have a problem because there's letters. We have a difference between big letters and small letters, things like that. In French, we also have accents, marks that change the value or the sound of a letter, okay? It's a little bit like tones, but an accent is only for one letter, for one vowel. But the bigger problem with a language like French is that French has